Captain Lee Hyun stood tall on the bridge of his ship called Resilience. The ship was floating in the darkness of space, surrounded by hundreds of alien vessels that looked like giant metal monsters with glowing lights. Each alien ship was 10 times bigger than his small human ship, but Lee Hyun was not afraid. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 long years. The human ship Resilience was not built for war, it was built for talking and making peace with aliens, but today something was different. Today, the talking was about to end forever at the massive alien space station called the Galactic Council. Chambers Ambassador Park Soo sat in a chair that was too big for his human body. The chair was made for aliens who were much larger than humans. Around him sat creatures from across the galaxy that looked like nothing he had ever seen on Earth. There were the Velthins, who had blue skin and were as tall as 2 humans stacked on top of each other. Their eyes glowed red and they had no hair on their heads. The Korthok looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had sharp teeth and claws that could cut through metal. Then there were dozens of other alien species, all sitting in their fancy chairs looking down at the single human. For 3 years Park Soo had come to these meetings. Every time he tried to make friends with these aliens, every time he offered to share human knowledge and human friendship, every time the aliens laughed at him and called humans weak and stupid. Park Soo remembered the first time he came here. He was so excited to meet aliens and learn about the galaxy. He thought they would be happy to meet humans too. He was wrong. The first alien he met was a Velthin named Commander. Zek looked at Park Soo like he was looking at a bug. He said humans were too small and too weak to be important. He said human technology was like toys compared to alien technology. Then Park Soo met the Korthok leader, General Voss. Voss laughed. When he saw Park Soo, he said humans looked like the animals they used to hunt on their home planet. He said maybe humans could be good pets for alien children, but the worst alien of all was Counselor Vex. Vex had 4 arms and skin that looked like it was covered in slime. He had tentacles instead of hair, and his voice sounded like nails scratching on metal. Vex was the leader of the Galactic Council, and he hated humans more than anyone. Every meeting was the same. The aliens would make fun of humans. They would say humans were too primitive to join the galaxy. They would give humans impossible tasks to prove they were worthy. They made humans give up their best technology. They made humans follow rules that no other species had to follow. They treated humans like children who needed to be taught how to behave. Park Soo endured it all. He smiled when aliens insulted him. He said thank you when they gave him impossible demands. He did everything his government on Earth told him to do. He tried to keep the peace because Earth needed alien friendship to survive in the galaxy, but today was different. Today Counselor Vex had prepared something special for the humans, something that would change everything forever. Stood up from his huge throne-like chair, his forearms spread wide like he was trying to hug the entire room. His tentacles wiggled with excitement as he began to speak. Citizens of the galaxy, he said in his horrible scratchy voice, today we will solve the human problem once and for all. Park Soo felt his heart start beating faster. The human problem, what did that mean? For too long we have allowed these primitive apes to pretend they belong in our galaxy. Vex continued, we have been too kind to them. We have given them chances they do not deserve, but no more. The other aliens in the chamber started making sounds of agreement. The Velthines made a humming noise. The Korthok clicked their claws together. Other aliens made sounds that Park Soo could not understand, but he knew they were not good sounds. Today, I present to the council the final solution for humanity, Vex announced. He pressed a button and a huge screen appeared in the air showing words in the alien language, but Park Soo could read it because he had learned their language over the past 3 years. The screen showed new laws about humans, laws that made Park Soo feel sick to his stomach. From this day forward, all human military ships will be surrendered to the Galactic Council. Vex read from the screen, all human colonies will be placed under council control. All humans will serve the superior alien races as workers and servants. Any human who refuses these orders will be executed. Any human planet that resists will be destroyed completely. The chamber became completely silent. Every alien I turned to look at Park Soo. They expected him to bow his head like always. They expected him to say, yes sir, and thank you sir, like he had done for 3 years. They expected the human to be weak and obedient like always, but something had broken inside Park Soo. Something that had been holding back his anger for 3 long years. The anger of being treated like an animal. The anger of being laughed at and insulted. The anger of watching his species be humiliated over and over again. Park Soo stood up slowly from his too big chair. His legs felt shaky, but his voice was strong and clear. When he spoke the single word that would change galactic history forever, word echoed through the massive chamber like a gunshot. Every alien stopped making noise. Every alien stared at the small human who had just done something impossible. He had refused to counsel, or to Counselor Vex blinked his ugly eyes. He could not believe what he had heard. His tentacles stopped wiggling and hung still around his head. You misunderstand, human, he said slowly. This is not a request. This is not a discussion. This is an order from the Galactic Council. You have no choice but to obey. Park Soo looked directly at Vex without fear. He had spent 3 years being afraid of these aliens, 3 years trying to make them happy, 3 years swallowing his pride and accepting their insults, but he was done being afraid and, you misunderstand. U.S. Counselor Park Soo replied, "We came here 3 years ago looking for friends. We offered you our knowledge, our culture, our friendship. We wanted to learn from you and share with you, but you treated us like we were nothing." His voice grew stronger as he continued, "You called us animals, you called us primitives, you laughed at us, you made us jump through hoops like trained pets. You made us prove over and over that we deserved to exist in your galaxy, and we did it because we wanted peace." The aliens in the chamber started making angry noises, but Park Soo kept talking about this. He pointed at the screen showing the new laws. "This is not about peace, this is about making us your slaves. This is about taking everything we have built and making us serve you forever. Well, I have news for you." Counselor Park Soo smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally decided to stop being nice. "We refuse, we reject your laws, we reject your authority over our species, and we withdraw from all negotiations with the Galactic Council." Vex jumped up from his throne, his forearms waving wildly. "You cannot refuse the Council, you cannot defy us. We have 1,000 fleets, we rule 10,000 worlds, we will crush your pathetic species like bugs, and you should have treated us with respect when you had the chance," Park Soo said calmly. He pressed a button on his communication device and began broadcasting to the entire galaxy. "People of the galaxy," he said, his voice now being heard on every planet and every system. "For 3 years, humanity tried to join your council through peace. We offered friendship and received only insults. We offered cooperation and received only demands for slavery." His voice grew louder and more determined. "Today, the Galactic Council ordered us to become your servants. Humanity refuses. We will never be slaves. We withdraw from all talks with the Council, and we declare that any alien fleet that comes to human space will be treated as an enemy." The transmission ended and chaos exploded in the council chamber. Aliens were screaming and yelling in their strange languages. Some were calling for immediate war against humanity, others were shocked that any species would dare defy the council. Meanwhile, on the ship Resilience, Captain Lee Hyun received Park Soo broadcast. His crew gathered around him waiting for orders. They all knew what this meant. War was coming. Communications Officer Kim Min spoke first. "Captain, what are your orders?" Lee Hyun looked out at the alien fleet surrounding them. He thought about Earth and all the humans living there. He thought about the colonies where human children played and laughed. He thought about the future his species deserved. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them the diplomatic mission has failed. Tell them we are done being nice. Tell them to prepare for war." The alien fleet commanders expected the human ship to surrender or try to run away. Instead, they watched in shock as the small human ship began charging its weapons. The humans were actually going to fight. Captain Lee Hyun gave the order that would start the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. Fire. 3 days after the Vorthan fleet had fled from Earth, Captain Lee Woo-jin was still trying to understand what had happened. The man who had expected to die defending his home planet was now sitting in a conference room with representatives from 3 of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The Keth-Moran delegation had arrived first with First Echo. Keth-Mor, bringing 2 other members of the collective Deep Watch. Their ship looked like a floating cathedral made of living light, and when they walked, they seemed to glide just above the ground without actually touching it. The Zephyrian Commonwealth sent Ambassador Velnara, a being that looked like a cross between a butterfly and a tree. Her wings were made of what appeared to be solar wind and leaves that changed color with her emotions. She spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Most surprising of all were the Titan Lords, who everyone had thought were just legends. Admiral Kronthal arrived in a ship that was larger than most space stations. He stood 4 meters tall and was made of what looked like living metal. His voice sounded like mountains talking to each other across vast distances. Admiral Park Da-yoon was leading the human delegation, and she still could not believe that their desperate lie had turned into the most important diplomatic event in human history. Dr. Song Hae-rin sat beside her with data tablets full of information about the alien civilizations that she had accidentally described with perfect accuracy. Lieutenant Choi Min-ah was serving as the communication coordinator, making sure that all the different alien languages were properly translated. The universal translator that the Keth-Moran had provided was far more that advanced than anything humans had ever imagined. A meeting was taking place on the human orbital station because all 3 alien civilizations had agreed that Earth should remain the center of what they were now calling the Terran Protection Alliance. Commander Kim Tae-ho was in charge of security, though he admitted that if any of these aliens wanted to cause trouble, there was nothing humans could do to stop them. First Echo Keth-Mor began the formal discussion. "Your species has accomplished something that we thought was impossible. Admiral Park Da-yoon, you created a completely fictional set of diplomatic documents that perfectly matched the actual treaty protocols of 3 different galactic civilizations," Ambassador Velnara added, her musical voice to the conversation. "The mathematical frameworks that Dr. Song Hae-rin used for the fake legal language were identical to formulas that my people developed over 10,000 years ago, yet your species has only been studying space for a few centuries." Admiral Kronthal spoke in his deep rumbling voice. "The most remarkable thing is that you somehow knew the exact territorial boundaries and protection doctrines that we 3 civilizations had established for this region of space. Your fictional treaty placed Earth in the precise location where our 3 spheres of influence overlap." Dr. Song Hae-rin looked embarrassed as she tried to explain. I used radio signals that we had intercepted from deep space over the past several years. I thought I was just making up legal language that sounded official. I had no idea that I was using real alien communications. Technical Sergeant Yoon Seok Jin had been analyzing the alien technology, and he was amazed by what he had learned. The monitoring devices that the Vorthans had planted throughout the solar system were primitive compared to what these three civilizations possessed. They had been watching Earth for much longer than anyone had realized. The Keth Moran had been monitoring this system for over 200 years. First Echo Keth Moore revealed. We were waiting to see if humanity would develop the wisdom to join galactic civilization peacefully, or if you would become another aggressive species that needed to be contained. Ambassador Velnara spread her solar wind wings. The Zephyrian Commonwealth has been studying human art and music transmitted from your planet. We were impressed by your creativity and your ability to imagine better futures even in the face of hardship. Admiral Kron Thol crossed his massive metal arms. The Titan Lords were most interested in your response to overwhelming odds. Rather than surrender or despair, you chose to fight using the only weapons you had: intelligence and creativity. Captain Li Wu Jin raised his hand respectfully. Excuse me, but I still do not understand how our fake treaty became real. First Echo Keth Moore shifted into his energy form, and images appeared in the air around the conference table. Your species has been unconsciously absorbing fragments of galactic culture for decades. Radio signals, quantum fluctuations, gravitational waves all carry information about the civilizations that created them. The images showed human scientists over the years making discoveries that they thought were original, but were actually rediscovering principles that alien civilizations had known for millennia. Humanity had been learning galactic law, mathematics, and diplomatic protocols without realizing it. When Dr. Song Hae-rin was forced to create fictional legal documents under extreme pressure, her subconscious mind assembled all these absorbed fragments into something that matched actual galactic treaties almost perfectly. Admiral Park Da-yoon was beginning to understand. So when we lied about having a protection treaty, you were accidentally telling the truth. Ambassador Velnara finished. The treaty that you created was so close to what we three civilizations had actually been planning for Earth that we decided to make it official. The Terran Development Accord is now a real document, Admiral Kron Thul announced, signed by the Keth Moran Collective, the Zephyrian Commonwealth, and the Titan Lords. Earth is under our joint protection, and humanity is invited to join galactic civilization as an equal partner. Lieutenant Choi Min-ah could barely contain her excitement. What does this mean for humanity? It means that your species will receive access to advanced technology, educational exchanges, and protection from hostile civilizations like the Vorthons. First Echo Keth Moore explained. But more importantly, it means that humanity has proven itself worthy of trust and friendship. Dr. Song Hae-rin was reviewing data from the past few days. Admiral, I am receiving reports that other alien civilizations are requesting diplomatic contact with Earth. It appears that news of our protection alliance has spread throughout the galaxy. Commander Kim Tae-ho was looking at tactical displays showing friendly alien ships arriving in the solar system. Ships from dozens of different species were coming to establish embassies and trade agreements. The species that had been alone in the universe just days before was now the center of galactic attention. Technical Sergeant Yoon Seok Jin was working with alien engineers to upgrade human technology. The Keth Moran had provided new power sources that were clean and virtually unlimited. The Zephyrians had shared medical knowledge that could extend human lifespans by centuries. The Titan Lords had offered construction techniques that could build cities in space. But the most important change was not technological, it was the knowledge that humanity was not alone in wanting to build a better universe. The galaxy was full of species who valued creativity, courage, and the willingness to help others. Captain Li Wu Jin thought about his family back on Earth. His wife Kim So-young and daughter Lee Ju-yoon would grow up in a universe where humans were respected members of a vast galactic community instead of facing conquest and slavery. They would have opportunities that previous generations could never have. Imagined. Admiral Park Da-yoon stood up and looked out at the stars through the conference room windows. Just days ago we were preparing to die defending our world. Today we are welcomed as equals by civilizations that have existed for thousands of years. She turned back to the alien representatives. Our greatest weapon was never our warships or our technology. It was our refusal to give up hope even when everything seemed impossible. We told a lie because we believed that the universe should be a place where the weak are protected by the strong, and by believing that lie and fighting for it, you made it true. First Echo Keth Moore said. The universe has a way of rewarding those who dare to imagine better realities. The species that had faced extinction through superior firepower had instead achieved salvation. Through superior imagination, humanity had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe was not a gun or a bomb, but a dream of how things could be better. As the meeting continued and new alliances were forged, Captain Li Wu Jin realized that this was not the end of humanity's story, but the beginning of a much larger adventure among the stars. The appearance of the real Keth Moran ship changed everything in ways that no one could have predicted. Commander Vex Var was no longer just worried, he was terrified. The massive alien vessel that had appeared at the edge of the solar system was unlike anything the Vorthans had ever seen before. Captain Li Wu Jin stared at the tactical display showing the new arrival. The catamaran ship was enormous, even bigger than the largest Vorthan battleship, and it seemed to bend space around itself. Just by existing, when it moved through space, it created ripples that made every sensor on both human and Vorthan fleets scream warnings. The ship itself looked like it was made from crystallized starlight, constantly shifting between being solid matter and pure energy. Weapon ports opened and closed along its hull like breathing, and strange lights pulsed through what might have been armor or might have been living tissue. First Echo Kethmore continued speaking, and his voice filled not just the command center but seemed to reach into the minds of everyone who heard it. The translation was difficult because the alien was communicating in concepts that human language could barely express. Vorthan Fleet Commander, you have 60 seconds to explain your military presence in this protected system, or we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. Commander HFY was trying to maintain his composure, but his forearms were shaking visibly. Great Echo Kethmore, he said, using what sounded like a formal title. We were not aware that this system was under collective protection. We came here to negotiate with the human species. Negotiate? First Echo Kethmore replied, and there was something in his harmonic voice that sounded like amusement. With a fleet of 300 warships armed for planetary bombardment, this is how Vorthans negotiated. Moralpark Dayun was trying to understand what was happening. The Kethmaran Collective was supposed to be a fiction created by human intelligence officers, but here was a real Kethmaran ship with a real alien who seemed to know about the protection treaty that humanity had invented. Technical Sergeant Yoon Seok Jin was scanning the Kethmaran vessel with every sensor they had, but the readings made no sense. The ship appeared to be using technology that was thousands of years ahead of anything that Vorthans possessed, and millions of years ahead of human science. Do Song Hae Rin was monitoring communications between the Vorthan ships, and she could hear panic in their encrypted channels. The alien fleet that had seemed so confident and powerful just hours before was now frightened and confused. Many Vorthan captains were demanding immediate withdrawal, while others wanted to fight both the humans and the Kethmaran. The Vorthan Empire had built its power by conquering weaker species and avoiding stronger ones. The sudden appearance of a Kethmaran deep-watch vessel meant they were facing an enemy that could destroy their entire civilization without effort. Lieutenant Choi Min-ah looked up from her communication station. Admiral, I am detecting massive power buildup from the Kethmaran ship. Whatever weapons they have, they are preparing to use them first. Echo Kethmore spoke again, and this time his voice carried a note of finality. Vorthan Commander, you have violated the Terran Development Accord by bringing weapons of war into this protected system. Your fleet will withdraw immediately or face complete destruction. Commander HFY was no longer trying to appear brave or threatening. Commander Kethmore, we were not informed of any protection accords. We will withdraw our fleet immediately and report this incident to our High Commander. Kethmaran seemed to consider this that is acceptable. However, be aware that the Terran system is now under active deep watch protection. Any future Vorthan military presence will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. Captain Lee Woo-jin watched in amazement as the Vorthan fleet began to turn away from Earth. The 300 warships that had seemed invincible just hours before were now fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. The aliens who had conquered 12 worlds were running away from a single Kethmaran vessel, but Admiral Park Dayun was still confused about what was happening. She had created the Terran Development Accord as a complete fiction, yet here was a real alien who not only knew about it but was treating it as real and legally binding. First Echo Kethmore, Admiral Park Dayun of Earth. We must speak privately. Before the Admiral could respond, a beam of light surrounded her, and she found herself transported from the command center to somewhere completely different. When the light faded, she was standing inside what could only be described as a living cathedral. The walls were made of what looked like crystallized music, and they pulsed with colors that had no names in human language. The air itself seemed to whisper with ancient knowledge and wisdom. The ceiling stretched up into infinity, filled with stars that might have been real, or might have been memories of stars that had died long ago. First Echo Kethmore materialized in front of her, and Admiral Park Dayun saw that he was even more alien than she had imagined. The being appeared to be made of living starlight, constantly shifting between energy and matter. When he moved, reality seemed to bend around him. Your species shows remarkable creativity. First Echo Kethmore communicated directly into her mind without using words, creating detailed fictional treaties with civilizations you had never encountered, complete with legal frameworks that perfectly match our actual diplomatic protocols. Admiral Park Dayun finally found her voice. How is that possible? We invented everything. Our intelligence teams created those documents from nothing, did they? The Kethmaran shifted, and suddenly Admiral Park Dayun could see images floating in the space around them. Your Dr. Song Hae Rin based her fictional legal language on radio signals that were intercepted from deep space. 3 years ago, those signals were fragments of actual Kethmaran diplomatic communications. Images appeared showing human scientists unknowingly using real alien mathematics, real treaty structures, and real legal concepts that they had absorbed from various observations of space over many decades. Your people have been unconsciously learning pieces of galactic civilization for generations. First Echo Kethmore explained. When your minds were forced to create believable fiction, you assembled these fragments into something remarkably close to actual truth. Admiral Park Da-yoon felt the weight of this revelation. Your species has demonstrated intelligence, creativity, and courage in the face of impossible odds. These are the three qualities that the collective values most highly. So, the protection treaty, Admiral Park Da-yoon asked, is now completely real and legally binding. First Echo Kethmore confirmed. Consider this our formal acceptance of the Terran Development Accord. Retroactive to whatever date you specified in your fictional documents. Back in the command center, the crew was watching the Vorthan fleet jump into hyperspace and disappear. The enemy ships that had seemed so terrifying were now gone, leaving only empty space and the impossible. Kethmoran vessel commander Kim Tae-ho shook his head in amazement. So we won by lying about having powerful friends and then discovered that the lie was actually true. Da Song Hae-rin was reviewing all her data about deep space signals, seeing them in a completely new light. It appears that the universe has a very strange sense of humor. Lieutenant Choi Min-ah looked up from her communications console with excitement. We are receiving messages from the Zephyrian Commonwealth and something called the Titan Lords. They say our fictional allies want to make their protection real. When Admiral Park Da-yoon reappeared in the command center, she was still trying to process everything that had happened. She looked around at her crew, at their primitive ships, and at Earth hanging peacefully in space outside. The Kethmoran were not the only ones who have been watching. She announced that the galaxy is full of ancient civilizations and they have been waiting for humanity to prove that we deserve to join them. Today we did exactly that. The greatest weapon that humanity possessed was not their technology or their military strength. It was their ability to imagine a better future and fight for it with nothing but words, hope, and accidental wisdom gathered from listening to the stars. Commander HFY's image disappeared from the holographic display as he went to talk with his officers aboard his flagship. Admiral Park Da-yoon used this break to check on her team's progress. The fake evidence had to be perfect because one small mistake would expose their lie and bring death to everyone on Earth. Dr. Song Hae-rin was working at her computer station with sweat on her forehead even though the command center was cold. Admiral, she said quietly, I am detecting that the Vorthan fleet is using their deep space scanners. They are trying to check if our claims about alien protectors are real. Expected. Admiral Park Da-yoon replied calmly, Lieutenant Choi, activate the Ghost Protocols. The Ghost Protocols were humanity's secret weapon that the Vorthans knew nothing about 6 months ago when Vorthan scout ships had visited Earth's solar system for what they called peaceful exploration. They had secretly planted monitoring devices throughout the system. The aliens thought these devices were hidden, but human engineers had found them within weeks. Instead of destroying the alien monitoring devices, the humans had studied them carefully. They learned how Vorthan technology worked, and most importantly, they learned how to copy their signals. Now those same devices were being used against their creators. Technical Sergeant Yoon Seok Jin was controlling the Ghost Protocol systems from his station. The stolen Vorthan devices were now broadcasting fake signals across multiple star systems, making it look like 3 massive alien fleets were moving through hyperspace toward the solar system. To Vorthan senses, it would appear that the Kethmoran collective was sending 50 warships from the galactic core. The Zephyrian Commonwealth appeared to be moving 30 ships from the Outer Rim, and the legendary Titan Lord seemed to be bringing 20 of their mythical dreadnoughts from unknown space. The fake signals were so convincing because they were created using real Vorthan technology. The monitoring devices that were supposed to spy on Earth were now telling lies that could save the planet. Commander HFY's image returned to the holographic display, and Captain Lee Woo-jin could see that the alien was much more nervous than before. The confident Redditor who had demanded surrender was now a worried commander facing an unknown threat. The sensor readings you were showing us could be false information, HFY said, but his voice sounded uncertain and afraid. Captain Lee Woo-jin stepped forward and spoke respectfully. Commander, with all due respect, why would we create false information? Look at our ships, look at our technology. Do you really think we could threaten the mighty Vorthan Empire? By ourselves, we are exactly what we appear to be, a young species that is protected by much older and more powerful civilizations. The genius of the lie was that it used the truth. Humanity did look weak because they were weak. Their ships were old and primitive because they really were old and primitive. But sometimes appearing helpless was the perfect cover for a deadly trap. Dr. Song Hae-rin was monitoring Vorthan communications, and she could hear the aliens arguing among themselves through their encrypted channels. The alien fleet commanders were divided. Some wanted to attack Earth immediately, while others wanted to investigate the human claims more carefully. If what you say is true, HFY said slowly, then attacking Earth would bring the anger of 3 galactic superpowers down upon our entire fleet. Not just your fleet, Admiral Park Da-yoon corrected him gently, your entire empire. The Kethmoran collective does not believe in small punishments. They believe in making examples that will be remembered for thousands of years. If you attack their monitoring station, they will hunt down every Vorthan world and turn them all into dead rocks floating in space. Lieutenant Choi Min-ah was working hard to maintain the fake signals that made it look like alien fleets were approaching. The computer systems were overheating from the constant work, and several components had already failed. They needed the Vorthans to make a decision soon, or their technology would break down. and exposed the Lie commander Kim Tae-ho was studying the tactical display that showed both fleets the Vorthan ships were no longer moving toward Earth. Instead, they were holding position at the edge of the solar system while their commanders argued about what to do. The alien commander's forearms were moving in quick, nervous gestures, and his compound eyes were flickering between different colors. The Vorthans had conquered 12 worlds by being careful and never taking fights they could not, when the possibility of facing 3 unknown civilizations at once was their worst nightmare. I need more time to verify these claims, Vexvar announced. Of course, Admiral Park Da-yoon replied, but I must warn you again, our protection treaty has automatic emergency systems. If our orbital stations detect hostile forces for more than 12 hours without peaceful resolution, emergency signals are sent to our protector civilizations automatically. I would hate for a misunderstanding to start a war that would destroy both our species. The hours crawled by like years while both fleets maintained their positions. The Vorthan fleet stayed at the edge of the solar system, running deep space scans and arguing among themselves. Meanwhile, Earth's defenders worked desperately to keep their elaborate lie. Working Technical Sergeant Yoon Seo Jin was having problems with the ghost signal generators. The devices were breaking down from overuse and the fake fleet signatures were becoming weaker. If the Vorthans detected that the approaching alien fleets were not real, the deception would collapse and Earth would be doomed in the depths of the orbital station. Human technicians were working frantically to repair and replace the failing equipment. They knew that millions of lives depended on keeping the Lie alive for just a few more hours. Dr. Song Hae-rin looked up from her monitoring station with excitement. Admiral, I am receiving a transmission from the edge of the solar system. It is using Kethmaran communication frequencies. Every person in the command center stopped what they were doing and stared at her. The fake Kethmaran signals were something they were broadcasting, but this was coming from outside their network. This was Park Da-yoon felt her heart stop beating for a moment. They had been pretending that the Kethmaran collective was real, but this signal was coming from somewhere else entirely. Put it through, she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. The voice that came from the speakers was unlike anything any human had ever heard before. It spoke in musical tones that seemed to vibrate through their bones, and the translation computers had difficulty converting it into human language. This is First Echo Keth. More of the collective Deep Watch. We have detected Vorthan military vessels in the protected Terran system. Explain your presence immediately or face the consequences. The command center exploded into barely controlled chaos. Admiral Park Da-yoon raised her hand for silence, but her mind was racing. This was impossible. The Kethmaran collective was supposed to be their invention, a fake civilization created to frighten the Vorthan's commander. Vexvar's image appeared without being called, and his compound eyes were blazing with fear and anger. What is the meaning of this? You said the Kethmaran were your protectors, not that they were already here in this system. Admiral Park Da-yoon realized she was standing at the most important moment in human history. Whatever she said next would decide whether her species lived or died. The Lie had somehow become real, but she still had to play her part perfectly. Commander, she said with remarkable calm, I told you that Earth was a monitoring station. Did you think we were the only ones doing the monitoring? The holographic image of Commander Vexvar appeared in the middle of the command room, and everyone stopped breathing for a moment. The alien was huge and terrifying, standing almost 3 meters tall with black armor covering his entire body. He had 4 arms that moved like a predator hunting for prey, and his eyes were made of hundreds of small parts that glowed with an evil green light. Captain Li Wu-jin had seen pictures of Vorthans before, but seeing one in person was completely different. The alien looked like a giant insect that had learned to walk upright and carried weapons. His voice came through the translation machines as a deep growling sound that made everyone in the room feel afraid. Human, Admiral Vexvar said, and his voice filled the room like thunder. I will give you one chance to surrender. Your people can work for the Vorthan Empire as slaves. If you refuse, we will turn your planet into burning rocks and ash. Admiral Park Da-yoon stepped forward and tried to look confident, even though her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone could hear it. She had practiced this moment in her mind many times, but now that it was happening, she felt scared and small compared to the giant alien commander. Lex, she said, and her voice was steady and strong. I thank you for your offer, but I must say no. You see, attacking Earth would break several very important treaties that we have with other alien civilizations. The alien made a clicking sound with his mouth parts that might have been laughing. Treaties, he said. What treaties? Your species has barely left your home planet. What friends could you possibly have that would scare the Vorthan Empire? This was the moment that everything depended on. Admiral Park Da-yoon looked directly at the alien's glowing eyes and told the Lie that would either save Earth or doom it completely. We'd have treaties with the Kethmaran Collective, the Zephyrian Commonwealth, and the Titan Lords, she said calmly. 3 of the most powerful civilizations in this galaxy. Earth is under their protection because of the Terran Development Accord that was signed 47 years ago. The command room became completely silent. Captain Li Wu-jin watched the alien carefully and saw something change in Vexvar's behavior. The alien's forearms started moving in small, nervous motions, and his glowing eyes became dim. Lieutenant Choi Minar stepped forward with a computer tablet in her hands. Admiral, should I send the treaty documents to the Vorthan fleet? She asked. Yes, send them immediately, Admiral Park Dayun replied without looking away from the alien commander. The documents that they were sending were completely fake. Human intelligence officers had worked for days creating false papers with made-up signatures and official-looking seals. The treaties looked very important and legal, but they were all lies created on computers. Every word was fiction, but they looked so real that even humans might believe them. The fake documents mentioned real alien civilizations that the Vorthans knew about and feared. The Kethmaran Collective was a mysterious group that had disappeared from this part of the galaxy hundreds of years ago. The Titan Lords were legendary beings that most aliens thought were just stories, but the Vorthans had heard these names before, and they were afraid of what might happen if such powerful enemies decided to fight them. This is impossible. Vexvar growled and his voice sounded less confident than before. The Kethmaran Collective has not been seen in this area of space for centuries. The Titan Lords are just myths and stories. Admiral Park Dar-Yun allowed herself to smile just a little. Commander, you have conquered 12 star systems in the past year. Did you really think that such aggressive expansion would go unnoticed by the major powers of the galaxy? Earth is their monitoring station. We watch, we report, and when necessary we call for help. Darsong Heirin was working frantically at her computer station. She was an expert on space communications, and she was creating false signals that would make it look like powerful alien fleets were moving through space toward their location. The signals were designed to fool Vorthan senses and make them think that 3 different alien armies were coming to help Earth. Commander Vexvar's image flickered as he turned to talk to his officers. The humans could not hear what he was saying, but they could see that he was arguing with someone. The confident predator who had demanded their surrender was now looking worried and uncertain. Technical Sergeant Yun Coc Jin was monitoring the fake signals they were broadcasting into space. His equipment was working perfectly and creating the illusion that massive alien fleets were moving through hyperspace toward the solar system. To Vorthan senses, it would look like the Kethmaran Collective, the Zephyrian Commonwealth, and the Titan Lords were all sending their most powerful warships to protect Earth. The beauty of the lie was that it made sense. Humanity looked weak because they were weak. Their ships were old and their weapons were primitive. But sometimes looking helpless was the perfect disguise for a trap. Many powerful civilizations in the galaxy used smaller species as early warning systems and monitoring posts. When Vexvar turned back to face them, his whole attitude had changed. The arrogant conqueror was now a nervous commander who was facing a situation he did not understand. If what you claim is true, he said slowly, then attacking Earth would bring 3 galactic superpowers down upon the Vorthan fleet. Not just your fleet. Admiral Park Da-Yun corrected him gently. Your entire empire. The Kethmaran Collective does not believe in small responses. They believe in making examples that other species will remember for thousands of years. Captain Li Wu-Jin watched as the alien commanders for arms moved in what their Xenobite expert had identified as a fear response. The Vorthans had built their empire by carefully choosing their battles and never fighting enemies they could not defeat. The possibility of facing 3 unknown but extremely powerful civilizations at the same time was exactly the kind of scenario that kept Vorthan military planners awake at night. Commander Kim Taeho was amazed at how well the lie was working. The fake documents looked official, the false signals appeared real on sensors, and, most importantly, the Admiral was delivering her performance perfectly. She looked calm and confident, like someone who really did have powerful friends coming to help here. I need time to verify these claims, Vexvar announced, and his voice no longer sounded threatening. Of course, Admiral Park Da-Yun replied graciously. But I should warn you, our protection treaty has automatic systems built into it. If Earth's orbital stations detect hostile military forces for more than 12 hours without a peaceful resolution, emergency signals are sent automatically to our protector civilizations. I would hate for there to be a misunderstanding that could start a galactic war. Lieutenant Choi Minna was monitoring communications between the ships, and she could see that they were sending messages back and forth very quickly. The enemy fleet was no longer moving toward Earth. Instead, they were holding their position at the edge of the solar system while their commanders decided what to do. The lie was working, but Admiral Park Da-Yun knew that they were walking on very thin ice. One mistake, one piece of evidence that did not match up, and the Vorthans would realize they were being deceived. Then the alien fleet would attack, and Earth would have no defense at all outside the space station. Earth continued to spin peacefully, unaware that its fate was being decided by the greatest lie ever told in human history.